Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Excited to be here. Excited to be back after the attacks on X yesterday. We had to wonder what was going on there. We did a show yesterday. You can find us on Rumble and everything, but we could not get it up here on X. Luckily, we are up on Rumble again, as always, and X and Facebook and everywhere else that we can be up. So glad to be back and glad to see that Elon is survived the storms and that X is functioning again. So a big thing there. And we got into some of that yesterday. Dark Storm team, which turns out it seems like they have ties to Ukraine now. It's hard to say. Initially, there were thoughts that they were had some ties to Russia, but it looks like Ukraine. It's kind of an interesting thing. So what we do know is that they're pro-Hamas, pro-terror, pro-this, pro-that. So whatever they are, they ain't good. We see that a couple different things, and we're going to be getting into some of the economic stuff, right? Eggs are going down. Price of eggs are going down. So, I mean, the economy must be great, right? There's actually an awful lot happening, and there is an economic war, and there's a lot behind it. So we got my friend Kirk Elliott's going to be here. We're going to be talking about that. I don't know anybody who is better to talk about with economic issues than Kirk. The guy just knows everything. So I'm looking forward to that. Before we do, big news. Trump says that we need to primary Thomas Massie. Now, that's kind of crazy. I like Massie. Now, Massie is an automatic, Trump's frustrated because Massie's an automatic no vote on a lot of things. He's a very principled guy and he does what he's going to do. But Trump calling him out, telling him he's looking for a primary because Massie won't support this continuing resolution. That's huge. That's huge. And I got to be honest with you, there's a lot of Republicans that I would see that I think we'd be talking about primarying way before Massie. So we'll see what happens here. I mean, this is a messy, I don't know, it's a mess. It's something. And I'm just not 100% sure which direction is the right way to go with that. But I do like Tom Massie. I do. And it's a shame to see that sort of a fight happening. We've got also, egg prices. I want to send my condolences to Alex Jones and to InfoWars and everybody involved. Very, very, very sad. Jamie White was brutally murdered in Austin. He was a good guy. I met him a time or two. And, Jamie did a lot of work behind the scenes at InfoWars. I didn't know him well, but it's very sad to see that happen, especially if, as Alex was saying, that this is really just a result of this Soros prosecutor in Austin letting everybody go and not prosecuting criminals and not doing things. I mean, these guys got to go. We got to get rid of these crooks. And hit some. We got to have law and order. We've got to have justice in our country, and right now we don't have that. And even with Trump coming in, these prosecutors that were there, they've got to go. They are a disaster. It's no good. So. Before we get going, as usual, I want to remind you, please check us out. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. We need your support there. Become a monthly giver, $20 a month. Is a huge difference. You can do it at TomRens.com or you can do it at GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. Either way, TomRens.com or GiveSendGo.com/Renslaw. Your help keeps us fighting, keeps us going, makes a big difference. So please support us. And of course, again, today we got my friend Kirk Elliott on. And you see that he is right here at the top of the page. Go to TomRens.com, click on shop, go down to partners and affiliates. Right there it is. Kirk is... like you said, he's one of the most knowledgeable guys I've ever ran across. Doesn't matter what we talk about economically. The guy knows it. He understands it. Good guy, does great work, and his firm does wonderful work. I cannot strongly enough recommend that you have gold and silver in your portfolio. We are going to a digital currency. There is going to be a digital currency. There's nothing anyone can do about that. And it's going to be gold backed. Gold and silver are going to be backing whatever's going forward. So if you don't have this in your portfolio, you're just putting yourself and your family at risk. So please consider gold and silver. All right. So without further ado, let's bring on Kirk and let's talk about what's happening here. How you doing, Kirk?
I'm doing awesome. How are you doing, Tom?
I'm doing well. I was really kind of blown away by the attacks on X yesterday. I mean, that was a very you got to figure Musk is not a dumb dude, and if there's one thing this guy knows, it's coding, it's it's IT. I mean, to hack X is not a. I mean, I understand it's a DDoS attack, but that's not a small feat. I mean, they've got a lot of security there. Um, they must have some big people with real deep pockets back in that move, right?
Well, you've got to, and I heard your comments. Was it Russia? Was it China? It looks like it might be Ukraine, right? Which,
Yeah,
of course, right?
yeah,
It's like why not attack Trump's guy who's possibly going to cut funding to Ukraine, right? And
yeah,
maybe encouraging that. It's like it makes sense to me that it would be them, but it makes sense to me that it could be China too, or it could be Russia. I mean, Trump is putting tariffs on all these countries to make
yeah,
America great again, right? And what's
yeah.
good for us isn't necessarily good for the rest of the world, Tom. And so
Well,
people are going to get ticked.
yeah. Well, I mean, this is what we're seeing, and this is kind of what I really wanted to talk to you about today. And I'm glad you're here because, I'm looking and I've got, headline after headline after headline about, different things. These all tie to the economy. People, when you talk about the economy, they expect you to talk about inflation or, I don't know, reserve currencies, things like that. But at the end of the day, the economy is nothing more than an amalgamation of all of these different things. So when we talk about egg prices, okay, it's egg prices, but certainly it is a part of the larger economy. It's an important part because egg prices represent or are a marker within food. They're a staple food. They're in everything. Everything is cooked with eggs. You can't make bread without eggs. You can't make anything without eggs. So when egg prices are high, it tends to bump grocery prices up. And when you got Joe Biden and crew killing off all the chickens, so that obviously there's a constriction on supply, then you're going to see prices go up.
Mhm.
So, but this is what we were seeing, and what I really want to focus on is there's about 50 different spots that this is happening. But across the board, what I think we've seen is death by a thousand cuts economically. We've we've hit so many key industries and so many key things that the economy has kind of been struggling because of the intentional acts of Joe Biden and the Democrats across the board. That kind of through an amalgamation, death of a thousand cuts, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing that. What do you think about that?
Well, I think you're right. So when we look at some of the economic fallout that's happening even today, right? As we're recording this, the stock market's just getting crucified. I mean, it's not
Pummeled.
doing well. The crypto space is being pummeled. Gold and silver happen to be going up a lot though, but I would expect that. It's a flight for
Yeah.
quality. As other things fall apart, they do well. But you look at the more traditional stocks, bonds, mutual funds, what are 10-year yields doing? They're all tanking. Now, who gets blamed for it? That it's going to be the guy who's holding the bag when things fall apart, which would be Trump, right? But is any of this Trump's fault? No, he's only been in for 6 weeks, for crying
Yeah.
out loud, right? But we've got not just 4 years of horrible Bidenomics preceding him. What Trump is trying to unravel to make America great again is
Yeah.
probably every president since Reagan,
Yeah.
right? Because you had both Bushes, you had Clinton, you had Obama, you had Biden.
Yep.
And what did they do? They were exporting jobs to the rest of the world to get their cheap stuff here.
Yep.
They were kind of consumerist type presidents. They were more globalist, concerned about the World Economic Forum than they were about us, right?
Much.
So, and now Trump is assembling this really amazing team, Tom. When I look at somebody like Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent,
Yeah.
right? So he's all over the news. He talks more than any Treasury Secretary I've ever seen, right? So
Yeah.
what did he say? I mean, he said a couple of things over the last 2 weeks. He signaled more pain in the short term, which is the hangover effect from Biden.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and so he's okay. So a lot of the people that call my office are like, "Oh my word, Trump is the most amazing person ever, and the economy is going to boom, and it's going to be great." And my response is, "Yes, Trump is an amazing president. The economy is going to boom, but we've got pain to go through before we get to that point."
Yes,
right?
we
Because
do.
you have to unravel all of this stuff. So you've got now signals. You're an amazing attorney, and you know that words have meaning, right? Every
Huge.
single word. I mean, so you look at the words of what these people are saying. Vicent, there was an article on CNBC, and what did he say? He said, the American dream is not about access to cheap goods.
No.
Okay. So what is he not saying? Right? It's kind of like that Alison Krauss, song. You say it best when you say nothing at all, kind of
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like, what is he not saying? So he's basically saying we are going to have expensive prices here for a
yeah.
while. I mean, he's
Oh, he's right.
signaling, messaging to this isn't the American dream, is to have cheap stuff. So then when he says we're going to go through pain, then he also said in another interview that, this hangover effect from Biden that we're seeing, 4 years of rising unemployment, lowering wages, printing money like drunken sailors, that has ramifications, right? So it's going to take a while to unwind. Even though Trump is doing amazing things, he said, his words, not mine, this will be Trump's economy in 6 months. What did he not say? The
Yep.
next 6 months could be kind of squirrely
Yeah.
and ugly. That's what that tells
100%.
me. So you add all of this up, and then Trump had this interview with Maria Bartiromo over the weekend. And what did he bring up? The R word. He brought up the recession word, right?
Yeah.
It's like, why would a president talk about recession? It's like when they know that they're going to get the blame. Well, because Trump doesn't care. We're going to have a recession, so he might as well bring it up because it was Biden's fault. For crying out loud.
You can't have inflation like we had under Biden without a recession afterwards.
Correct.
I mean, that's just part of this. People don't understand, and Biden knew this. I mean, you look at the bills he has passed over the last year or so, and what they're doing is they put all sorts of spending measures and things in to kind of just throw things out of whack. I mean, all the policies he had. I mean, food, cutting back and allowing them to cut back on fertilizer production, things like that, allowing them to do all sorts of different things. I mean, everywhere you look was another policy structured for long-term fallout. I mean, we passed continuing resolutions and budget spending bills that tied Trump's hand for the first year. I mean, there's no question. And then, when you have the kind of inflation we had under Biden, the cycle, I mean, and you can speak to this, Kirk, this is your world. I mean, you don't, it's not possible to have an inflation cycle like we had without a recession cycle to follow it up to correct it.
It's impossible. So what we've got is two different things happening. So recession it refers to the business cycle.
Yeah.
Right. It's like this has to do with jobs. Are people working? Are people spending? If there's more people working, there's going to be more people to spend. Right. So you either can have a recession or economic growth. Right.
Yeah.
And then multiple quarters of recession, you get a depression. Yeah. Right. So that has to do with the business cycle. Now, the inflation part is how do governments and policies adjust to whether we're in economic growth or in a recession, right? So the way that Biden did it, which was awful because it's the same way Carter did it, right? And Reagan had to fix things when Reagan came in 1980, because Carter, before he died recently, he was probably the only guy cheering with Biden's economy because...
That's because he finally found someone who did it worse.
I know. I mean, that's basically it. So what he had was recession. If you remember, We had massive shortages at the gas pumps. They were rationing at the gas pumps.
Yep.
Inflation was persisting. The highest income tax bracket for Americans under Carter, it was like 70% for the wealthiest, highest tax bracket. It's like, what in the world? People are flipping out now because it's 36. It was so bad back then. Yeah. This is why when Reagan came in, he had to fix it. And he said, okay, I know how to fix this. It's going to be ugly. And he teamed up with Paul Volcker, who was chairman of the Federal Reserve at the time, and said, we've got to jack up interest rates really high to slow down inflation. So here's the issue. The only way for interest rate policy to actually slow down inflation is for the interest rates to be higher than the inflation rate.
Yeah.
So he had to jack up interest rates to 18% because inflation was 15.
Yeah.
Right. So then what did that do? It took a little bit of time, but it slowed down inflation. It slowed down that train. And then over time, they were able to start systematically lowering rates. And then that created jobs because more people were spending, and they lowered taxes, and it created a framework for economic success. Trump is doing the same thing in a sense. He's having to atone for the sins of the father, so to speak, of the Biden administrations prior. He inherited a nightmare of an economy. So what's he doing? He's not necessarily using tax policy to fix this. He's doing something really interesting that none of us alive have ever seen any of this happen before, which is in a time of inflation like we've got, technically you should never lower interest rates.
Yeah.
Because it would make the inflation worse. Now, Trump and Bessent are signaling that we're going to have more inflation because they want to lower interest rates. But what he wants to also do is lower taxes so much to maybe even eliminate taxes completely, and replace those with tariffs. Now, the tariff is basically just a tax on other countries that want to sell their stuff to the wealthy American consumer, right? That's all a tariff is. It's the pay to play. It's the cost of admission to sell your stuff, whether it's cheap Chinese trinkets or flat panel TVs from Korea or you name it, right? If you want to sell to us, you've got to pay this tariff. Now, this is where he's shifting the burden from us as taxpayers to fund our economy to other countries.
Yep.
Genius. But it's not his idea. It was a founding father's idea, Tom. And he's just now utilizing it again because we got off this path in 1913. When the Fed came into existence, when the IRS came into existence, we got rid of tariffs by and large. But Trump's going to bring us back to that point. So this is where you can have normally competing policies working at the same time, lowering interest rates while you have inflation because other countries are now going to pay our tax bill, right? Yeah. But it's going to be a transition to get to this point.
It's going to be a big one.
This is where people have to give grace to Trump and understand that this isn't going to happen overnight. So in theory, foreign goods are more expensive because of tariffs, right? So people are going to stop buying those foreign goods and they're going to buy American. This is what's going to make America great again.
But there's two things that I think are critical.
Mm-hmm.
One, the lag is in part due to the fact that we don't have any manufacturing, so we have to rebuild it.
Exactly.
So until we start making our own goods, now here's the thing though, as we start making our own goods, we have to pay American level wages. Those wages fund workers having the money to buy the more expensive goods, and put foreign worker products on even keel. One of the things that nobody talks about with the trade policy is that we aren't on a level playing field. The idea of free trade to promote democracy was a great idea, except for one thing: it's not a level playing field. Yeah. You know, the theory was that American manufacturing, you know, we'd be able to compete. But the reality is there are no labor laws. There's no fair labor. There's no fair wage. There's no environmental laws. You go to China, it's, you know, whoever you buy off gets to do whatever they want to do. So when we look at what's happening in America, our manufacturing's been destroyed because we can't compete. And when, one of the things that nobody talks about with this is think how expensive it is to build and produce a widget and then ship it all the way across the ocean, put it in an American store, ship it to wherever. I mean, the cost is mind blowing, but we are so out of whack because of our regulatory structure, everything else. And, one of the problems is that, they figured out that if they just remove all regulations and they make it however cheap and poisonous and dangerous that they want to make it and then ship it here, that, they can undercut American manufacturing. They only have to undercut us by 5%, and they win the market, right? So they don't have to do something hugely cheaper. It just has to be a little cheaper, but they can make a far inferior product at a little bit lower price, and they still make money, and American manufacturing dies. That's what's happened. And so as that's happened, and this is where the inflation recession cycle ties together. And I agree with you. Obviously, per definition, inflation, recession are a little bit, they're not necessarily tied, but they have to be tied. And they have to be tied in the sense because when business is failing, when people are spending power goes down, you can't have inflation in theory. Now, in this case, though, you're right. Trump upended it because Trump, this is absolutely brilliant in my mind. Like you said, founding fathers on down, but by taking a different approach, he went to the premise, right? He went to the premise of the problem. The problem was that, everybody says, well, you either have inflation or recession because either, products are getting more expensive and the cost of goods getting more expensive. And so business is growing, big business, or you have, where wages are shrinking. The people don't have the money to buy that more expensive stuff, so inflation goes down. The inflation is opposite. So it was always looked at through that paradigm.
Yeah.
But and even historically, I remember reading the Wall Street Journal articles and economic articles for years and years, the inflation recession cycle. And you're right, they were technically different, but nobody recognized that, at least in the way that Trump is and the way that you're talking about it, which is brilliant, by the way, because when they just they didn't realize, well, wait a second, we can break this cycle if we break the dependence on foreign goods and foreign products and foreign services, because if Americans start making these things, if we're competitive here in America, if American factories and jobs are protected, well, American workers make more money, and so they can buy the more expensive stuff, and the whole economy rises without necessarily having to pull money away from the businesses that are funding the economy growing. I mean, it's brilliant.
It absolutely is. And this is, Trump made it into a slogan, "Make America Great Again," right? But really, what is that? All it is simply regaining our freedoms, the ones that you have fought so hard, our religious freedoms, our economic freedoms, our personal freedoms, our health freedoms, right? They're all tied together. And I firmly believe if we lose one of them, we lose all of them.
Yes,
They're that connected, right? So we can think about it. If you lose your political freedom, you're not going to have religious freedom or personal freedom. If you lose your religious freedom, you're certainly not going to have political freedom because you're going to, they're all connected.
If you can't protect them all, you can't protect any of them.
Yeah, you can't. So in making America great again, it economically, it's simply bring jobs back to America. Because you said it. When people are working, people will spend. When people spend, corporate America gets, mom and pops expand, everything does. So here's where Biden had it so wrong. Because with all these environmental regulations, these administrative rulings, making business less profitable, people got laid off. Their wages weren't keeping up with inflation, which actually accelerated the pain, right? Because prices were going up like crazy, but their wages were coming down. I mean, that chasm between the two got so big that now this is why Trump got elected. It's like people said enough is enough, right? So I don't care if inflation goes up as long as wages go up with it, because that's a sign of a growing economy. If inflation is going at 10% and what your wages are going up 10%, you don't even know there's inflation because you're keeping up with it, right? And this is what Trump has to do to make this work, is bring jobs back to America, because then people will be spending and people will be working and they're going to make more. This is where Biden got it completely wrong, because they print, all the jobs are being exported everywhere. There was not enough tax revenue in America to fund everything, so they had to print their way out of it. That caused inflation and fewer jobs.
Yeah.
It's an awful plan. Awful.
Yeah.
And now we have to pay the price for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so under Biden, the rich got richer and the poor got poorer, right? So the divide was greater. And there's kind of this, well, they've successfully told us that you have to attack the rich for the poor to not be poor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's not actually true. The Trump plan is the rich get richer and the poor get richer. The Trump plan is everybody gets richer. Nobody gets hit. And that's the thing. That's the secret. A free economy where everybody's given equal opportunity allows everybody to succeed together. But it has to be incentive. There has to be an incentive for everybody to get wealthier. And what we've had, and this is one of the things people don't understand about foreign trade and billionaires and this, that, and other, right? So why is it that, the billionaires always get richer and the rest of us all get screwed? Well, because if the American economy and I want your comments on this, Kirk. So if the American economy is crashing and you've got enough money, well, you don't really care, because here's the deal. Walmart may die in America, but Alibaba is going to pick up the market share.
Right.
And the rich guy, the billionaire, has global investment ability and opportunity. So the billionaire is going to put his money in Alibaba, and he doesn't care whether it's good for America or not. He just cares that he's making more money. And once you're a billionaire, it doesn't really matter. The economic situation on the planet makes no difference to you. You can move if you want to. You can go where you want to. It doesn't make any difference, right? So what's happened is a lot of foreign companies, a lot of American companies, Google is a great example. Google is a phenomenal example. So Google, they bend over backwards to censor free speech and to do whatever China wants them to do. Well, they're an American company. Shouldn't they consider making America the best it can be their top priority? Well, no, because they're making money all over the planet, and there's no downside to them making more money in China than America. So, they export whatever they need to export to China, and there's no downside because there's no penalty, because, that's how we structured our regulatory structure. So, and for a company that's not, even for people that aren't companies, they just invest abroad, and you get to pick your winners and losers in whatever country you want. And basically, whatever country's willing to scratch your back the most is where you're going to get most investments. And so a corrupt country, China, Ukraine, some of these, they're able to throw kickbacks at politicians or at people. And that's how you get the money over there. Do you agree with that kind of assessment on it?
I do. Money makes the world go around. People hate to hear that, but it really does.
Yeah.
Now, here's where you can bring in biblical principles, right? It's money isn't evil. The love of money causes greed and all kinds of things, right? So it's the love of it. It's not the money itself. It truly, you can't give a ton if you don't have a ton, right?
No.
Now, you can give out of your need rather than out of your abundance, which is amazing. But we're talking about extravagant, over the top, right? That just takes stuff. So you were right when you said Trump, what he's doing with his policies, it makes the rich richer and it makes the poor richer. See, and what is that going to do? When the poor get richer, it expands the middle class, which is the meat and potatoes of our economy, right? So under Biden, you had the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And what did that do? It eliminated most of the middle class. And now you have this country of haves and have-nots, which creates racial divide. It creates gender divide. It creates economic divide. It creates political. I mean, nobody gets along anymore. Nobody can even have a rational argument with others because you just revert to mudslinging, name calling, and you won't even listen to anybody anymore. It's like what
Yeah.
happened to normal discourse, right? It's gone. But that's what's created when you create a nation of haves and have-nots, right? And that's where we are. So what Trump is going to do when he fixes the economics of this country automatically, and I mean, this is my theory, right? You're going to start to see people start to get along again
Yeah.
because you're going to
Yeah.
reduce a lot of these divisions
Yeah.
that we see.
100%. 100%. All right. I want to shift into a very much related topic because we're seeing the stock market crash.
Mm-hmm.
So, BlackRock started the first, real big public AI system back in the 90s. And that system has been learning and studying the stock market since the 90s. Now, here's my hypothesis, and here's what I want to talk about. I think the entire stock market's rigged. It doesn't mean that there's nothing organic that occurs, but what it means is this. You make money off being the first to have information. That's why all of our congressmen are rich, because the insider trading that they do. Of course, it's not called insider trading if you're Congress because they've created loopholes for themselves. But realistically, even though there are laws that prevent insider trading, if you are a billionaire client of BlackRock, you get access to the data and to what's happening first, immediately, instant access. And so what that does is that makes it so that if you see a trend, you have the opportunity to act on that trend before any regular consumer even knows that it's happening. And so the insiders who trade for the billionaires have permission, have authority to act on those trends that the AI is picking up on before anybody else can even know they're there. This means that if you are a Bill Gates, Warren Buffett investor, you will never lose money. You will only make money because you can trade on what's happening before it happens. You get the earliest indications of a trend or of a market move. You trade on it, so you make money on everything. And that whether the market's going up or down, right? Because you can short a sale or you can just shorting a sale, by the way, folks, is when you borrow someone else's stock to sell, and with the promise that you're going to give them the stock back in a given period of time. And the reason you do that is if you know that the stock price is going to crash, you borrow their stock, you sell it at whatever price it is, and then you buy it back cheaper and give it back to them, at a lower rate. So you make money out. So that's perfectly legal. It happens. And whether the market's going up or down, your rich institutional investors make mad money because the AI knows what's going to happen before anybody else, and that's the way that works. I think the stock market is no longer. It's not a actual market of any type. It's just a mechanism to pull money from the middle class to the ultra rich, because you can do that. That's part of the reason I like gold and silver, right? Because you can't manipulate gold and silver in the same way that you can the stocks. They are what gold and silver is what it is. It's never going to change. But this is a foundational reason that I say that people should have money in gold and silver instead of just the stock market, because you can get wiped out. I would even go so far as to say that's part of the reason that when Musk bought X, he bought it without and took it out of public. It's not public anymore because he otherwise its value would have went to nothing.
Well, it would have. And when you say the stock market's rigged, it's not you and me.
No.
And it's not any investor that's actually creating the trillions of dollars of volume, right? I mean,
No.
we're part of it. The retail sector is part of it, right? But it is the high frequency trading. It's these big institutions. It's, when you look at a hedge fund, for example, how does a hedge fund make money? Well, it's usually like 2% management fee, and then they get 20% of the gains.
Yeah.
So how do you get the most gains? Find your billionaire clients to actually throw a bunch of stuff into it, and that can impact a stock price. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Well, yeah,
But it's
that's another part of it.
unethical for an advisor, so to speak, to front run it, meaning if I were the advisor, I'm going to be the first one that makes this trade. Well, you can kind of bypass that because you have to make it to your clients first. You have to let them be the first choice, and then as the advisor, you get the scraps at the end, right? But if you're smart about it, I suppose, or sneaky is maybe a better word, you bring in your really wealthy clients first, because then that's going to run up the share price, and
Yeah.
everything that you have is going to grow. And I mean, this is how the game is played. But these high frequency trading, you don't need to inject bajillions of dollars of capital to keep the market propped up. Because when you're talking about the Dow Jones Industrial Average, well, it's 30 stocks. Well, you look at the weighting of some of the really big ones, they are so big right now. Like Nvidia is so big, Apple is so
Oh, yeah.
big, Microsoft is so big that you can just inject capital now into a few companies, and it's going to impact the entire index because of the weighting of those.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's relatively rigged, just like you said.
Yeah.
And people don't even realize how that game is played.
Well, what you're saying is the other side of the rigging, right? So I think there's two parts. I think the AI is a much bigger part than what we know,
Mm-hmm.
because of the ability to spot and analyze trends before anybody else. And
Mm-hmm.
what you do legally, you can authorize certain trades. You can authorize your broker, your manager to do whatever you want to authorize them to. And so when you have access to that that immediate information, that's huge. Now the other side of that is exactly what you're saying. If I have $1 billion to invest, and whether that's 1 or 10 billionaires that are contributing to it doesn't matter. If I've got $1 billion to invest, I can either tank or make a company stock entirely.
Yeah.
I mean, very few companies aren't hugely impacted by that sort of an investment. And so if I see, 5 billionaires all buying heavy in a certain company stock, that means it's going to skyrocket. Now, here's the thing. Congress has access to the AI. All these guys, the insiders have access to AI. So when 5 of them start doing that, they know immediately, and so everybody jumps on it, and so they get the initial benefit, and they get the benefit of this whole thing. They also see when it slows down. But before the AI gave them the ability to maximize that profit, it was exactly like you said. It was, well, I like you, so a bunch of us are going to invest in this, and we're going to make your company worth a ton. And it doesn't matter. I mean, like if you look at one of the things that's interesting to me, because I'm a nerd, is to look at the way that investing works now versus the way it used to, right? So it used to be back in the day, you studied the company's financials, you looked at what they were doing, you looked at what they were going to do, were they going to be profitable? Profit and profitability and, whether a company is even functional is frequently secondary now. It's really, I mean, it's not always. There are some companies that still, the blue chips, old industrial, they've been there forever. People still look at that. But there are a lot of companies that win the stock market lottery, which is just convincing a bunch of billionaires to invest in you and speculate on you. And next thing you know, your prices are skyrocketing. You're $1 billion company, even though you haven't produced it. Moderna is a great example of this. Moderna did not have a single drug on the market for I don't even know how many years, yet people continued to invest in them. And now they're worth, $1 bazillion. Now, of course, if I were a conspiracy theorist, I might say that that's because insiders knew that in 2015 they were involved with the creation of SARS-CoV-2 and that they started creating the vaccines for it. I mean, we have Moderna's CEO actually talking about how he had created hundreds of thousands of COVID vaccines in the year 2019, which is interesting considering, we weren't supposed to have COVID then. And then, of course, you've got the fact that I had the data that showed that they were actually testing it on soldiers back in 2015. So, I mean, you can say, well, did people know that? Maybe, but the what you can say for sure though is that that's a great example of a company that was producing nothing but was still winning in the stock market. Why is that? And I mean, but these are kind of things that we have, that are kind of shifted up. But I mean, it's because if you're billionaires, you can make anything have value, even if it doesn't.
It's true, and what you're touching on is going to change investing forever. I mean, a traditional advisor, I think, is going to go the way of the dodo bird because a computer can do it much better. When,
Yeah.
even okay, this might ruffle some feathers with you, right? But even how about a lawyer? Right?
Oh,
So if you've got an AI generated machine that can look at all the preceding case law since the beginning of time and craft a perfect
oh, we're
argument,
going to be antiquated very soon.
I
We're in the
mean, you
process of it
actually
now.
could be. Now, what AI doesn't have is a soul. It doesn't have a spirit. It
Yeah.
doesn't have this gut feeling, the hunches that have you ever made a decision, Tom, where you think, man, this doesn't really make sense, but I just have this gut feeling about it, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's God speaking to us. Computers will never have that.
No.
And that's the one thing that makes us always better than them. I don't care what Kurzweil or anybody says, how we're reaching singularity, where
No.
computers can replace humans and they're smarter in many things that they can, right? But imagine how your job, having now intuition and these gut feelings and the ability to craft an argument with emotion and everything else, having AI though generate a good argument based on all the preceding case law since the beginning of time. I mean, that would be pretty slick, right? Or a computer in the investing world that says, okay, for whatever reason, 3 days after earnings come out, blah, blah, blah happens. And you could actually, with confidence, saying 98% of the time, things are going to go up on this exact date because of this and this and this. I mean, it just makes it a money-making machine. It just makes it weird. The whole world is going to become weird. But how about this? Take it one step further. Not only is the world becoming weird and actually more unfair and going to increase the division between the haves and the have-nots, what about your now digital social profile and your social credit score and your ideology is going to cut you off and it's going to divorce you from the money in your bank?
Yep.
I mean, they've already got that in place. You
Yeah.
look at the Bank for International Settlements, you look at what they're doing with Project Aurora, Project Icebreaker. I mean, there's all kinds of them where it's like, no, programmable money is programmable money. If we
It
don't
is.
like you, you're not going to get your money. I mean,
Yep.
this is the way that the world is going with AI.
Well, they did this. They did this during COVID. I mean, so they didn't have the sophisticated, individualized ability to do this yet. And if they did, they just didn't admit it because people would have revolted. But the reality is you look at guys like me and many of our mutual friends who were speaking out. Well, we're demonetized. Companies like PayPal wouldn't do business with you. Credit card companies wouldn't do business with you. Banks wouldn't do business with you. People were debanked. People were hit everywhere because of their ideology. And so they to suggest that somehow, I mean, meanwhile, you got Biden investigating Catholics and school board parents, right? So the idea that the government could not be weaponized to shut down your personal bank account is absurd. They absolutely could be.
Yeah.
They have the capacity, they have the technology, they have everything they need. The only reason they didn't was because people were revolted. So, at the end of the day, we're there. I mean, the digital currencies, the CBDC stuff, the technology's there. The only reason that it's not implemented is because we, the people, won't stand for it. I mean, but at the end of the day, if you don't think someone's willing to try it at some point, they're going to try it at some point. I mean, that's just going to happen because if they can get away with it, they control the world forever. And so, I mean, that's why it's so critical that we the people have the ability to stand on our own 2 feet, and have some sort of a barter system, this, that, and other. I mean, that's why gold and silver, right? That's why you make sure that you prep and you've got a food supply and you got this and you got that, because there could be a very ugly transition period where if you're not prepared, you are going to be in big trouble, and you're going to have to figure out what you do and how you deal with these sorts of things. And I mean, it's a scary thing to think about.
It is. And Trump has already said that he's not in favor of CBDCs. In fact, it's not going to happen in our country, right?
Well, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen through the public-private partnership.
Of course.
They did this because they did they did the test run in Nigeria, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and it failed so badly, and then after that, the World Economic Forum came back, said we got to go back to the drawing board. People won't accept it, and then they come back. Well, we're going to do it with a public-private partnership. So you're right. Trump won't allow an official CBDC, but when Bank of America has Bank of America CBDC, and they decide we're going to debank you and not let you use our CBDC, and they're one of 3 CBDCs, and all 3 of them have the same ideological nonsense. I mean, it's the same practical result.
It is the same practical result, and it's just not going to be administered by the Fed, right? But
Right.
It could be administered by anybody else. But this is where the world has become so different than it was 20, 30, 50 years ago, in the sense of, it's always kind of been this way, but the bankers transcend politics.
Yes, they do.
Right? You've got cartel owning banking families that own most of the central banks around the world. And you know what? The leaders of countries are their pawns. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. And so
They are.
Trump may say we're not going to have CBDCs in this country, but yet the people that run the show, these international bankers, the Rothschild family and so forth, right? It's like, yeah, Trump is one president, one leader of a country, but they've also got 80 other leaders of the countries that use their banking services, right? So it's like they're actually bigger than national governments.
Oh, they are.
And this is where you need alternatives, right? So don't get scared about that. Don't get scared that no matter what you call it, it's the mark of the beast, it's complete loss of freedom, it's spyware on our bank account. How do you get away from that? Well, I think Trump is doing one thing, actually 2 things. He's doing 2 things that actually could get us away from this juggernaut of CBDC. Number 1 is, decentralized blockchain, cryptocurrency. It's not central, it's decentralized finance, right? So you got all these nodes all over the world that are lending back and forth, and it's on the blockchain. So that's one. If you like technology, some people are so scared of it, they're not going to ever do it. The other one would be going back to stable money, like what Ron Paul has been fighting for forever.
Amen.
Right? And that's gold-backed currency. Yep. Now, I would never invest in a currency in the sense of currency has exchange rate risk, political risk, countries can go out of favor pretty quickly. But if it's what if it's a gold-backed currency? Well, you invest in the backing, not the currency itself, because that has 0 counterparty risk. The country may fail, but the backing of the country never failed if it's gold or silver or whatever it is. This is where we can now think ahead of them, and we can see what they're planning on doing, and we can take a countermeasure to actually say, okay, this is what you're going to do. You're going to bring spyware in my bank account. I'm getting out of the system. I'm going to invest in gold or silver, tangible gold and silver that you take delivery of or put in your IRA, or I'm going to start getting out of banking as we know it, go to decentralized finance. I'm going to open up a cryptocurrency account, and it's not going to be at a centralized exchange. I'm going to have a hot wallet, right? Or a cold wallet. And I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I'm going to get it off of these centralized ones and have my wallet on my little ledger device, right? And now that's not as easy. It's not as simple. There's extra steps, but there's going to be options, Tom. Yeah. When some of these things come, we just have to have wisdom and discernment to recognize them and act accordingly to get out of the system.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And we've got to have a plan to do that. But I mean, you start doing that by prepping now. You start thinking about it now, and get ready. I do think, one of the things that's interesting, people talk about blockchain, and so don't tell anybody, but I actually have a little bit of a technology background. So I know a little bit more about this than I ever let on, and I try not to let on because then if people think you know anything, they start asking you questions, and I don't want that. Um, and I don't have interest in getting into IT security and network structure and that sort of stuff anymore. I just don't. It's just not a place I'm interested in being. But I'm glad I understand it. One of the things that I can say is that there's this idea that blockchain is totally secure because it's yours and it's on your phone and this, that, and other. No, no, it's not. I'm going to tell you right now, if it's digital, it's digital, and there is nothing digital that cannot be hacked. Nothing. Right down to your phone, right down to your high encryption crypto wallet. Everything can be hacked. Now, the thing that you have to understand is it's not whether it can be hacked, it's whether it's worth hacking, right? So hacking, so there's a theory in law, it's the theory of law and economics. And basically with that there's a ton of different things related to it, but it basically one of the theories within that field is that for certain lawsuits, certain this, certain that, they don't happen unless there's value to it, right? Unless someone's going to make some money off of it. And there's some truth to that. Same thing applies here. If I've got $10,000 in my crypto wallet, nobody's going to hack that. The effort to hack that high level of encryption is way more than what you're going to get out of my bank account. But Google has quantum supercomputing. They now, due to AI, have figured out how to actually make use of that quantum supercomputing. If you think that AI-powered quantum supercomputing can't hack your 512K encryption, I got news for you. It can. And what we're seeing is, we're now seeing jumps where some of these supercomputing, some of the supercomputing infrastructure can do things in minutes that would have taken decades. I mean, it's incredible, the leap, and that's only going to continue. So, you got to understand there's a certain reality that physical is physical, and there's nothing that you can do to replace physical. So I'm a big fan of physical and physical gold and silver, physical prep, physical this, physical that. I also think that it's interesting because more than just your crypto wallet, that AI supercomputing power allows for tracking on a level we've never seen. So I have here my brand new iPhone 16 ready for AI. Well, that means that AI is on my personal device. That means that the centralized AI can access the AI on my personal device. And it will. And there's nothing you can do to stop it because AI is smarter than we are. And only going to get smarter yet. We're going to, so again, this is all coming, folks. And it's a way of me arguing that the ultimate hedge for security is physical ownership of gold and silver. I don't have there is no other solution. Everything else is fake. Am I missing anything?
No, I think you're right. I mean, it's what kings and kingdoms have fought after for millennia, right?
Yeah.
Because it's real, it's stable, it's tangible. It's a way to kind of beat the bankers at the bankers game. It's a way to beat politicians at the politicians game, right? By having something that you can take delivery of that's truly not digital, that's out of the system. You can use it for barter if you need to, but it's growing. I mean, as we're talking, silver's up like 77 cents today on a $32 metal. I mean, it just bumped above 33. I mean, and these trends are going to accelerate as geopolitical tensions increase, as the inflationary pressures increase, as people lose hope in other investment categories. There's always a flight for safety. And then you just have the simple fact, supply and demand, right? There's low supply, high demand, prices go up. And that's what we're dealing with. So it's hard to poke holes in it. If you're looking for safety and growth, you can get both of them at the same time. I would allocate into precious metals like yesterday.
100%, 100%. Well, Kirk, I know you got to jump here, and I appreciate all the time with us. Make sure you go to tomrenz.com, check out our partner affiliate page, and go right here at the top. You can see kepm.com/Renz, kepm.com/Renz. You can go through tomrenz.com, or you can just go directly. But make sure you're checking out Kirk. Make sure you're supporting him. Make sure you're protecting your family. I mean, honestly, it's just prudent. So, Kirk, I appreciate it. It's always fun to talk with you.
It's great talking to you too. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, sir.
You bet.
All right. There's Kirk, brilliant guy, really a guy I got a lot of respect for. I mean, just good guy to know, good guy to talk to. I want to finish up the show. I want to wrap up with something fun here. So I saw Babylon Bee. I love Babylon Bee. Babylon Bee is hilarious to me. And I really like them. I follow them. I tend to check their website. That's my frivolity for the day. And so Babylon Bee today had a headline, 9 most brutal punishments in hell. And you see right there. And of course, this was something I just had to see because I knew this was going to be, and it was. This is funny to me. So this is their top 9 most brutal punishments. So if you're Jeffrey Epstein or Bill Gates or George Soros, these are things you're either experiencing or probably likely to experience, unless you make some shocking change. I don't know if there's much hope for any of these people, but anyways, things that we can assume that Jeffrey Epstein is currently experiencing right now, and so the Babylon Bee, they open up, they say, "Oops, looks like you've been condemned. You really shouldn't have read those Harry Potter books. We warned you those were bad," which I thought is hilarious. That's a funny way. Listen, because I know some of my brothers and sisters in Christ, and I'm Christian, but they get a little fussy with these Harry Potter books and some of that stuff. If I'm going to hell for reading Harry Potter, then I'm in a lot of trouble because I've done a lot worse than that. So anyways, top 9 list, right? So you're the things that Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci may well be experiencing soon. Number 1, you'll get a cell phone, but you can only receive calls about your car warranty that's about to expire. Oh, yeah, that's funny. Number 2, this I love. Every month is Pride Month. Just an endless pride parade everywhere you go. Okay, just Pride Month. Definitely think that's going to happen in hell. Number 3, you can only watch season 8 of The Office. Well, you should have trusted Jesus a little more, right? I mean, because everybody loves The Office, but season 8, get a little rough, right? This one was one of my favorites. Gilbert Gottfried follows you around reading passages from the book White Fragility. I got to be honest with you, that would be the literal definition of hell. There are Chick-fil-A restaurants, but you get stuck in the drive-through line and the employee is making awkward small talk with you and you never get your food. I really prefer just going up and ordering at the drive-through thing. I don't love the employees talking. They're nice, but number 6, all podcasts play at half speed. Well, except for mine, folks. I know you love that one so much that you don't mind it playing at half speed. In fact, I'm sure some of you listen to this at half speed just so you can enjoy the dulcet tones of my voice. Okay, maybe not. Number 7. You have to walk around in socks, and every once in a while you step on an icky wet thing and don't get to change your socks. I've never thought about that, but that was funny to me. Number 8. Oh, imagine if this happened. World War III is about to start. Inflation is at an all-time high, and Joe Biden is your president. Well, okay, we just kind of lived through that hell. But a good reminder of why you don't want to go to hell, because you'll have to live through that again. And number 9, Babylon Bee list articles are all 20 items long. I love that, folks. It made me laugh. And with all the bad stuff going on, we figured we'd end with something a little bit happy. Please support us, givesendgo.com/Renz or tomrenz.com. Givesendgo.com/RenzLaw or tomrenz.com. We appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We will be back very soon, and you have a great day.